Today's episode is brought to you by burning every bag of tea you have.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. What's going on?
Oh, you know.
Stage one is done.
Stage one is done. It's in the books. I can't believe it. It seemed like it went.
I know.
It went
Where
way
did it
too
go?
fast.
I'm furious. This league's too short. We need 80 games a year.
I know. We need to be more than all year around. It needs to go like a whole year and then another half a year.
Yes,
and then
easy.
take time and then start I don't know even know how that works. It doesn't make any sense. But hello, everyone. We're here. We've got stuff to talk about. All sorts of good stuff with stage one coming to an end and some news. And yeah, so let's just jump right into it. But first, we've got all sorts of housekeeping to go over. Biggest, most important thing is, of course, that stage one giveaway. Stage one is over, which means our stage one giveaway is also over, and the winners have been emailed. So check your emails. But the winners in first place was Wolfpack239. Check your email. The email that you gave for the Gleam was sent an email, and second place was Face the Raff. Face the Raff got second place. Of course, first place was an Overwatch League jersey of your choice, as well as an Overwatch World Cup pin, which I have right here. And second place was the pin. So, guys, I sent emails to both of you from High Noon Podcast. Make sure you check the emails that you registered with for the details on how to get your stuff. But congratulations, and we will be... we're probably going to do something a little bit different for stage two, but keep an eye and an ear out for that, because I definitely want to do something, maybe something a little more interactive and cool, but we'll keep an eye out for that, and we will keep you updated. But congratulations to the winners. You have both been emailed. Make sure you check those as soon as possible. Next piece of news, like I mentioned last week, we are Razer affiliates, and we have links somewhere. I own the links. There are in a place. So if you are looking to buy some cool Razer gear and want some deals and want to support the show, find out where they are from me. We'll be tweeting them out very shortly, probably by the time you hear this in podcast world, unless you're one of those early listeners like I carry am, who's probably going to hear this the second it goes live. But we will get those out to you.
It's like the middle of the afternoon for him.
That's true.
Even though it's like 2 a.m. for us.
That is true. But it will be out, and we will be getting links. And the way it works is there's like a ton of different ads that we can use. I'm going to try to choose the one that has the most options. So if you're not sure, but if there is something that you specifically want from Razer, shoot me a message either on Discord or on Twitter. Some way, find a way to reach out to us. There's a million different ways to do that. Let me know what you want. I can find you a link, and we'll get you what you want. But huge shout outs to Razer for that. We do have a new top 10 plays of the week video. Shout outs to Morai. Yes, I'm pretty sure I said that correctly this time. I've got it I've got it now. Check that out. That is on the YouTube channel. Really good, a lot of really good plays, except the last one made me very upset. But
yeah.
I was almost like, shut it down. Nope, get it out of here.
How do you think I felt? Like the big moments for Houston couldn't even go in the top half of that list. I was like, oh, great.
I know. Let's just say that the number 2 play was really the number 1 play. It just wasn't worth as much money. But we do, have that. We have a new episode of Around the Payload out from last week. Really good episode there. And we also have returning back the final episode of Stage 1 for Foul Play. A. Smith and Deathblow did that one. And Death, I haven't got a chance to watch it yet, but you were saying it was a classic short episode that ended up being almost 2 hours long.
Yeah, hour and 40 minutes because, we didn't have as much to talk about since we didn't have to look forward. We only had to recap. So obviously that meant, it was only going to be like 45 minutes or something like that. Like we just didn't have a ton to go through. So obviously doubled our expectations and went super as per the usual.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. Like whenever we think that there's not a lot to talk about, we find ways to make
Yeah, we allow ourselves to go on those tangents and just it never quite works out.
Yeah. But yeah, so we've got the week off this week for Overwatch League, but that does not mean that we're going to be stopping anytime soon. We've got all of our good stuff, all of our shows lined up and ready to go. We've also got a couple of there's a couple of hanging high noon hot seats out there. We've got just got to shore up some dates and times for those. So
yeah,
the hot
it's weird. It's almost like everybody involved in Overwatch League's been like super busy the past 5 weeks with something. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. We got to start getting people in again.
Yeah. Definitely going to, there's like, I think three different guests that we've got just like out in the ether, like waiting to secure a date on. So keep an eye out for those as well. And yeah, so let's move on to what did we do last week? Death, anything fun and exciting for you?
Well, I mean, the moth meta is dead, so I got to play my placement games on my main account. I did go 7-3 again, which if
Nice.
you remember from last season, when I went 7-3 to play, I was like 150 points above my career high. Mm-hmm. And I thought, just do that again, and then I'll be in GM. Well, good news. It didn't work that way, and it probably shouldn't have worked that way. So that's why I'm calling it good news. But yeah, so I'm still in Masters. I'm still a lowly pleb. But now like the big meta heroes fit my, like it's Moira and Zen in a lot of games. So I've always got a home. I feel really comfortable in both of them. So hopefully I can do a little climbing. Probably not a lot of time to do it in this stage, considering how often I'm recording or watching Overwatch League. But nonetheless, I won't have to like wait so long into the next stage or in the next season to get started. So that went really well. And otherwise, I mean, we watched Overwatch League ad nauseum this weekend. It was way too riveting to even consider taking your eyes away from it. Saturday was so exhausting. I can't even imagine the guys that were there. Shout outs to Blaze and Bob and Taco, who were keeping us entertained and infuriated with their tweets and updates from the venue.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, a little bit more there coming up soon. But I like Blevins left my apartment on Saturday after the finals.
Yeah,
I sat down in my computer chair and I'm like, all right, we're gonna play some games. I told Blevins I wanted to play. He's gonna go home, and I think I was asleep before you got to your apartment. It was a long day. So yeah, it was just so much fun. Really, really appreciated it. As we all should have, really, because if you're not thinking that the playoffs is just going to be the most exciting time ever when it gets here at the end of all the stages, I don't know what they need to do to convince you.
Yeah, I was super excited at how Saturday went. It obviously was a long day. It was a long day for us as fans, in our own house. So I can only imagine what it was like for the players. They did say Nate did tweet out that they're probably going to change up the stage playoff schedule, maybe pushing something to Sunday or moving things around a little bit, so it won't be potentially certain teams playing 3 matches in one day, which is pretty grueling. But
they did fine with it.
Yeah, they definitely they definitely did fine with playing 3 matches, but they understand that that's probably got to change. But yeah, I've been playing some Overwatch. I remembered how awful weekend Overwatch is, like playing at like peak times during the weekend. It's
the only playable time. Yeah, I agree.
No, it's just awful. At least at gold. I mean, maybe just
it could very well be different there. Yeah, because when I play on the lower tier SRs, I just don't care. So it's just go into game. It doesn't affect me when we lose or somebody leaves. I'm like, eh.
I have been slowly grinding up. I've gone above what I started. I've hit my season high. I'm at like 23 and change, working my way back up into the 2600 range. And then from there, the world. But yeah, it's been good. I just get like every like 3 games is just completely unplayable and I just lose from like nonsense. And then there's a couple of like, I've had some really, really good games where the team was coordinated and we played well. I've had some games where the team was coordinated, we played well and we lost, and those feel fine. And then I just have games where people don't talk and it's awful. And then I have games where it's just not even a game. Someone leaves or it's just complete trash. So
I need to get my grinding ability back for Overwatch. Like when I think of the amount of times that I pulled, South Park in World of Warcraft and just like sat in the forest killing boars over and over again for an entire weekend, and now I'm like, I get one bad game of Overwatch and I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
I gotta stop. This is ridiculous. And it's like, what happened to you? What happened to you, Dev? You used to be somebody.
I know. I like have one bad game and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to tilt. I'm going to play like Fortnite or something. And it's like, really, I just need to play like 50 games, unfortunately. But yeah, so let's move on here and move to my favorite segment of the show.
Overwatch Today, meme of the week.
And of course,
is it still your favorite segment?
It is. Yeah, this week it might not be, although it actually it isn't, but it also is. So the meme of the week comes courtesy of the Overwatch score and of Taco and Blazing Bob specifically.
Thank you guys, by the way, because he did this to me at BlizzCon.
They pulled the me.
Like, oh, this is a weird meme to happen to you, and I'll take this for now because it's hard to explain when it just happened. You feel so loved that these guys are out at this event having the time of their lives, right? Like, just literally looks like so much for the smiles on their faces as they troll you is just.
I got trolled. I got trolled hard. So here's the story.
Oh, you haven't even explained the meme yet. My bad.
No, haven't even explained. So here's the story. We flash back to BlizzCon. Of course, I was at BlizzCon. Taco was at BlizzCon. Blazing Bob. Everyone was at BlizzCon except for Deathblow. Deathblow was not there. So, of course, as the good friend and co-host I am, I had to rub it in his face. So every person that I saw and that Deathblow also knew, I would take a picture with them and leave a space in between and tag Deathblow in it and be like, hey, so glad that everyone gets to meet at BlizzCon. So just the massive rub-ins. So of course, you know, being who I am, I feel like this is never going to blow back up in my face. Well, I look at my phone and I see a tweet that says it's from Blazing Bob that says just hanging with Blevins and Taco in the media room. You guys are the best. I'm like, wait a second, I'm not in there. I look at the picture. It's Bob and Taco, and in between them is, I'm assuming, Mel holding my phone with my profile picture in between them with me tagged. And I'm just like, I can't even be mad. This is exactly what I did. This is what we call the just dessert. So kudos to you guys for
and like I was saying, there's no, you feel so loved that they're taking time out of their awesome experience and what they're doing, but it's just like you just hate them so much.
It's a feeling of both the most amount of joy and also the most amount of sadness ever.
Yes. It's rough.
It's great awful. I don't even know.
It's groffle. It is
just straight groffle. Another word made up on Hidden Podcast. What was it? What was the other one? Dramatically. It was dramatically groffle, for sure. But let's move on. We got a couple of pieces of news, one of which is not the announcement of the Florida Mayhem player that's going to be signed, unless they literally sent it out right now.
I'm literally like watching Twitter because I feel like it's going to happen mid-episode.
I imagine that if it goes up, it will be tweeted, it will be posted in Discord, and if we get it while we're still recording, I will like flash news update it. But as of recording, we don't have any news about the Florida Mayhem player, though. what is noted is that Ben Spoont, the CEO of Florida Mayhem, did say that they have 3 additional signings in addition to Zappis, of course, which has been confirmed. And they said that one of them would be revealed today, which is Monday. Haven't gotten there yet. Taco says there's just one signing. I don't know.
I think he's trolling now. But yeah, it's 3 hours earlier where the team is right now.
That's true. So it's only like 4:30 for them, but still nothing. I would have thought that maybe we would have done it in the morning so we get the day to mull it over. I don't know. Doesn't matter. We don't have it right now. If we get it, I'll let you know. One thing that is of note is that the players allegedly know who the signings are. I was trolling as in hanging out in Tavik's chat earlier today, and someone asked him about it, and it wasn't me, but someone asked him about it, and he's like, I know who it is. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to give you any hints. Not going to provide any sort of help. I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of interesting that they know, but they can't say, well, they won't say anything. They probably could, but they're not going to. But the actual news here, we'll start with an actual piece of confirmed news, and then we'll talk about the kind of conjecture. Former Toronto esports coach Junk Buck OW is now going to be on the coaching staff of the San Francisco Shock. So SF Shock getting an extra coach, probably going to be good, right? They've been struggling, not necessarily in the player skill department, and especially with the unlocking, quote unquote, with Sinatra and Super, extra coaching staff only stands to help them improve even further. So that's interesting. Any thoughts on that coaching staff addition, Death?
I mean, we look at the huge impact that a lot of the Toronto esports guys are having in Boston, and you have to think this guy is pretty good at developing talent. So I don't see any reason. I don't know a lot about him, so I don't have, any masterful insights into this. But generally, I think more coaches is good, and we've seen that play out so far through stage 1. So extra minds, as long as they're have Overwatch intelligence, even if you don't agree with them, is always a positive. I usually seek out people that I can disagree with, as evidenced by all my Discord conversations. Because it helps you figure out your overall position, to have people to challenge what you're thinking. So I don't think there's really any way this can be construed as a bad thing, unless we see the team dip in performance and we find out he's had a pretty heavy hand in the strategy or something like that. So good for them.
Yeah, and I think it's just nice to see that the teams are still willing to add additional staff, which I think, like, a lot of the teams, when you look at the players on paper, like, they've got the players, they've got the skill there. Obviously, some teams can use additional players more than others, but it's nice to see that these teams, even a San Francisco Shock, which has a wealth of talent, still able and willing to add coaching staff. So that's nice. But moving on, this one's interesting, and we talked about whether we wanted to even mention this or not. So the piece of news that came out is that the Blizzard investor meeting happened sometime last week, and Mike Morhaime, the CEO of Blizzard, said essentially they're looking to add new teams in Overwatch League in Season 2. Congratulations. We kind of pretty much already figured that. But it is nice to see, I guess, some sort of actual confirmation that that's happening. Now, everything after that that's come out of that has basically been conjecture and predictions, not anything solid on that. So we won't get too deep into that. But any thoughts, Death, on teams coming in Season 2? I mean, we have a pretty tight schedule for Season 1 with the 12 teams we have. Does this throw a wrench into things for Season 2? How do you imagine that the addition of more teams is going to affect Season 2?
I mean, I think it's only going to make it better. It's only going to add competition in here. Obviously, as long as teams don't pull a Shanghai, it's going to make the league as an overall better. It might take a little while. Obviously teams are going to make mistakes. There's going to be teams that are more successful than others in building their rosters, things like that. But, this is the direction we need to go. The question isn't it hasn't ever been for me, are they going to expand in season 2? It's how much are they going to expand in season 2, and where are they going to expand in season 2?
Right.
We do know their focus is going to be in Europe and Asia markets for the next expansion. So, you know, if I had to guess, I would put it somewhere around 4 to 6 teams, with one of them, or, you know, if it's 6, maybe 2 of them being NA teams, you know, maybe one in Canada, maybe one in the US, and then a few around Europe. That we definitely need to populate Europe and Korea with teams if we're going to be going into, you know, everybody's playing home games. We're traveling. Like, you have to have enough teams in the regions to support a team going to that region for an entire stage to play their away games for the season over there. You need a certain number to make that work. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how it plays out. I thought the most interesting thing was something I expected, right? Because it's hard to look at what's happened in stage 1 and call anything even close to not a success, right? Or a failure. The teams look like they're going to be more expensive. And this isn't anything from Blizzard or any news, but the speculation was maybe like 60 million instead of 20 million for a team. So it doesn't pay to wait in this instance, I guess.
Right. Well, the one thing that Mike Morhaime, it was said by Blizzard, was that they exceeded expectations. Now, whether that's viewership or just, you know, success, you know, I don't know exactly how they're measuring success, but it did exceed expectations, which is nice to see, because, you know, $20 million is not a small investment. So I was worried going into Overwatch League, like, you know, how much did Blizzard and the Blizzard salespeople really sell these sponsors? Like, where they're like, oh yeah, you're gonna get millions of views, you're gonna get this every week. It's like, well, you know, they didn't get that. They're not. You know, they're usually like the number one thing on Twitch when it happens, but like, is that enough? We're talking about, you know, Fortune 500 companies that are investing in Overwatch League. Like, is the top channel on Twitch, how much is that worth to them? Well, apparently it's worth at least $20 million. So I was worried about that, because that's not an easy conversation to have. With those types of companies that are used to getting, you know, X million hits when they put an ad in Newsweek or something like that, you know. So it was nice to see that. It's also going to be interesting to see how they expand into the non-NA regions. When we talked to Kevin Chu, he mentioned that he basically has that Seoul Dynasty basically have the rights, or whatever that means, to the Seoul region. So basically confirmed that there can't be a second Seoul team. So really, as far as I know, and as far as he led me to believe, the only other team that could, in South Korea, that could field a team is Busan, which is, I think, a little more of a rural area than Seoul. But it'd be interesting to see a second Korean team. Recently, like, I saw the story today, so I don't know when it happened, but Japan now, like, they had some legal laws passed that allowed esports and like professional gambling to happen. So we might be able to see, I know Not Rob from Omnic Lab had talked about there being some preventative legislation in place in Japan that really kept them from really having a big esports presence. But apparently that's kind of at least been pushed forward in a good way. So we might be seeing a Japan team. Obviously, you know, we want to see more in England, maybe France, you know, the Netherlands. I don't know, you know, where the best places in Europe would be, but it'll be interesting to see that. It'll be interesting to see like the divisions really kind of play out and divide, because right now it's like if you're in Atlantic or you're in Pacific Division, it until the end of the season doesn't really matter, like at all. Doesn't matter for stage playoffs, doesn't matter for anything else. Your schedule is essentially the same across the board.
It's just about that bye, and that maybe you might want to be in the Atlantic
season.
Conference if you want to make the playoffs.
Right.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. I think from when we talked with Nate Nanzer, it seems like they're willing to go back to the drawing board for each season, and potentially have a completely new looking Overwatch league in terms of scheduling and matchups and whatnot for season 2, which is a good thing. I mean, I think we're going to go through those growing pains, as we develop as a sport. So it will definitely be interesting to see that, but we'll keep you updated when we get actual news on that. We've already spent way more time than I thought we were going to on that topic, but definitely a very interesting and telling time in Overwatch. So let's move on to our next section.
It's tournament talk.
That, of course, is the tournament talk, and I forgot how we did this last time. Did we just go through it one by one and talk about the match, or
we stepped through them? Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll probably have a pretty hard focus on the later
Saturday.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll just kind of step through them and discuss any takeaways.
So Wednesday, we saw Dallas Fuel play against Shanghai Dragons, and notably, Shanghai Dragons got 2 wins here. Dallas Fuel ends up winning, but 3-2. What's the takeaway here, Death?
Well, Effect's a really good player, and he sure wasn't there. So they were rocking Taimu and Siegel this weekend. Listen, Siegel's continued to impress me. If I'm being perfectly honest with you, he may not be the best player for their communication issues at the moment, blah, blah, blah. But he has just been a solid performer for them every time he's hit the stage. And I disagree with most people's analysis that he's been Junkrat only this time. I think he's shown us Genji. He's shown us Pharah at times. And I've seen no reason to think he can't continue to do that. So I've been really, really impressed with him throughout the stage. On the Shanghai side of things, listen, Undead's really good. And I think he made a good decision, to give him that role over Dia, and that
they gave him the reins.
Yeah, the lock and load hit scan guy. But at the end of the day, I still don't think his Widowmaker is quite up to snuff with where Diaz is, and but there's a lot that Shanghai has to work on, and most of them are going to be handled by player acquisitions to kind of flesh out the roster. To things like not having 3 Lucio mains might be really good for them. And, having a projectile player anywhere around will be an improvement. Having, passable off-tank play and tank play might be an improvement as well. So Shanghai's in that rough spot. They're going to get out of it, and it's not going to turn. The season's gone, in my opinion. Right? It's over.
Unless there's something really. Unless they make really big strides very early.
Yeah, I mean, they would basically have to almost have an undefeated stage, right? And that's just going to get them back to breaking even. Like, they're not even going to be... I'm trying to think of where that would put them in the standings, and I guess we have the standings. They'd still be out of the playoffs, right? If everybody just duplicated their performance from the stage and they won out on the next stage, which would make it everybody duplicating impossible, but nonetheless,
that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, I mean, it might be
because there's at least one loss. Everyone got at least one loss, so that one loss could be from Shanghai. I mean, it would probably be possible.
Yeah, I mean, they would still be in 8th place, so it's a long road to go for
average. They need to average in the next 2 seasons, like winning a whole stage, and then have a strong 4th stage. Yeah.
It's basically over. We talked about it. The magic number to keep the dream alive is 3 wins, we believe. We're not actually mathematicians, so don't quote us on that, but that was just kind of our gut instinct feeling, and that's the number that we're going to go with. So sorry, Florida. Sorry, Shanghai. You're probably done. But other than that, I think everybody should be good. It was a big win for Dallas. They had to get 2 this weekend. So this one against Shanghai was big. It didn't have to be pretty, just had to be a W.
Yeah, so that was good for them. I mean, Dallas does seem like they're making strides. We'll talk a little bit more about their other match, but I don't know. It just seems like every step they take 2 back, and I don't know. I mean, the stage is over, so I guess they get to wipe that clean. They're still in contention, and they're still a solid team. They still have a lot of really good players. They've had some internal turmoil. I mean, they still do. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the off season. Well, not the off season, but in the signing period. If the AKM allegations are true, there was another tweet that went out about
tweets with like Hastro and AKM sitting with the team in their back room, like he's going.
Yeah. But there was another. I mean, the whole thing with Slasher reporting another player, and then Hastro saying it's not true. I don't even remember who it was, but regardless, it seems like Dallas Fuel is fielding tryouts and having talks with a lot of players, which is good. I think what they really need is they need an in-game leader, and I think Taimu kind of tried that, but it's not working for them.
Yeah, they're not looking leaps and bounds better when he's in there to me. So.
And Effect is not that type of player. He's the workhorse. He'll get the job done, but he's not the in-game leader. So I think
the call out you need is someone kill Cool Matt, please. Then Effect's your guy.
Well, that was I think that was Mickey. Was that I thought that was Mickey.
I was pretty sure it was Effect.
It might have been Effect, but regardless, it was funny. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, we could say that about a lot of these teams, but Dallas definitely has a big magnifying glass on them considering the expectations going in. But the second match we saw on Wednesday was San Francisco Shock versus LA Gladiators. Gladiators coming out 3-1 in that one. Any takeaways here, Jeff?
Listen, the Gladiators are a struggling team at the moment, and I had a little higher hopes for them. Thankfully for them, San Francisco struggling a little bit more right now in the Mercy meta. I really think it was a big struggle for San Francisco. Dak just not at home on Mercy, so he really struggled. LA was really able to take advantage of that. And at the end of the day, listen, it's not all sunshine and roses for the Gladiators here, because when I look at what they're able to do, and you know, we've talked about Surefour and Asher both being really, really good players. Asher's fallen off a lot to me. Like, I thought he was going to be one of the top end tracers in the Overwatch League, and right now he's an average at best tracer in the Overwatch League. And they seem to be getting more mileage out of not playing him and leaving him on the bench and playing Surefour. So that's troubling to me. We've still really not seen them go back to that triple DPS that kind of made them dynamic and different and hard to game plan for, or at least make you have to game plan specifically for them. So I don't know. I want to see them get back to it, but at least for this game, it worked out for them. They got a big goose, you know, like what else can you say? The goose was loose in this one. He got the job done. I think they're going to be better. You know, listen, Big Goose was not the worst Mercy in the league, but he was nowhere near the best Mercy in the league either. He had some moments. He's a phenomenal Lucio. So let's see what they do in stage 2. They were able to keep it alive with this win, get themselves to the 3 that they needed to, or no, they're at 4. This was their 4th win. Yeah. So a little better than they need to do. So still a
solidly average team, which is fine in and of itself, but it's not good for anything else, really. Like, I never expect them to beat a better team, and I mean, I don't really expect them to lose to a worse team necessarily, but I never expect them to beat a top tier team ever. Like,
and that's why I did so well in Pick'em through 3 weeks, because I took them over the Valiant. But I mean, it's a fair criticism.
They didn't win against Valiant. They lost against Valiant.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, they started. That was the one where they got reverse swept. They started off 2-0 and then they lost the next 3. Rip. I don't even want to talk about reverse sweeps right now, but
I have to soon.
Too soon. But yeah, I mean, the thing about LA Gladiators, and I'm currently writing about this in my post season or post stage 1 individual power rankings, is that specifically with LA Gladiators and San Francisco Shock, because they both seem like square right dab in the middle teams. The problem is with season 2, San Francisco unlocks, and also
stage 3 really.
Stage 3. Okay.
I did some looking at it, and like they start to get their guys back in week 5 of stage 2. Like they can play Sinatra in week 5 of stage 2, but are you going to throw out a month's worth of scrims and everything that you've been doing to? Even if he's a better player, I'm still expecting them to wait till stage 3 to really.
Gotcha. So I mean, okay, then that changes a little bit. I guess you just sub in stage 3 for stage 2, but San Francisco, at least on paper, seems like they're going to get better, or at least can get better, whereas LA Gladiators right now, I mean, there's at least no talk of any signings or swaps or anything. So really, they stand to get slightly better because they have a very good Lucio and Big Goose, but so does San Francisco with Dak. So I don't know, both of those teams, they need to change up something unless they're content being right in the middle, which they might be. I mean, you know, they're getting their fans, I guess.
At some point it has to be about more than potential. You have to like put it
Right.
together and actually improve. So that's what we need to see still from them. We saw it at the beginning with the Gladiators, and they've kind of gone either held still and everybody's been going up around them, or they've fallen back a little bit for sure. So we'll have to see. I'm still Gladiators are kind of my number 2. Like they're the one I want to root for, even if it's not working out great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. They're definitely a fun team. It's just not like both. I mean, San Francisco Shock like at least has Baby Bay, which is an exciting player, and like has those pop off moments. Every time I think about LA Gladiators, I'm just like, okay, they're like you can almost exactly predict every match that's gonna happen with them. They're either going to win if it's a better team. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing exciting about Surefour to me. But moving on, we saw LA Valiant 3-0 Seoul Dynasty. Yeah, I did say that correctly. Is this the starting to see the fall of the dynasty here?
Listen, I know it didn't go well for Bren when he said this. He made some people mad. They've got problems right now, and I don't know that it's the Mercy meta that you can completely blame on it. And here's the thing: the issue to me in this match and this weekend for them was on the support side of things. Too many times where their support alts being stacked and layered on top of each other. You need to stagger those. You need to be communicating. And I think as things are going poorly for them, they're probably clamming up a little bit in comms. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to understand their comms if I could hear them. So, at the end of the day, I can't say that with too much confidence, but that's what it looks like to me. I've seen plenty of teams stop talking and watch the scrims and know what it looks like when that happens. And support alt stacking is definitely at the top of the list of symptoms when comms are slowing down. And listen, I don't care what 2 supports you're playing, right? Like if you're pressing Q at the same time, whether Toby's on Mercy or he's on Lucio, if he's doing it at the same time as Jaehong, fine if he's on Ana, I guess, but you get my point. Like you're giving up too much value and you're spending too much to win a fight if they're even winning it. And in the case of the LA Valiant match, they didn't win a lot of those fights. I do have concerns about the Seoul Dynasty, not like are they doomed or is it, you know what I mean? But like how long is it going to take to get back? This is the team we expected to be at the top of their division, and they're not right now.
People had them at the top of the league for the longest time.
Yeah.
Almost everyone, except for me. I had the appropriate team at number 1 the whole time.
Sure. I mean, you turned out to be right in the end. So who
sure
am
did.
I
Therefore,
I just by the transitive property. Is that
nope? That's not transitive property.
Either way, I just had to bring it up because I know how much you like it coming into the conversation. But yeah, listen, Seoul's got some problems. We expect them to improve when Toby. It's not that Toby's been a bad Mercy. It's that he's a phenomenal Lucio player. Like he's just better at the other heroes. Best Ana. Jaehong's the best Ana in the league. I believe that he's at a very elite level Zenyatta in the league. He's gotten to play that a little bit, but they're just out of their comfort zone. They're switching way too much. And to be perfectly honest with you, their second DPS player is having nowhere near the effect that Fled is having on the match.
Right.
And when you look at the other teams that are more successful than them, and you look at, namely Houston, Lynxer's the carry on that team, right? But like, look at Jake's numbers. And they're right there because
you need to have the second guy there.
Right. If you focus on one, you can eliminate him unless the other one steps up.
Right.
That's what the good teams are doing right now. You can't focus Libero out. You can't focus Sabayobi out or Pine out because the other one's going to destroy you.
Yep.
And that's
or the other DPS, aka the support Jonak.
Jonak. Right. Yeah. The teams that are doing well right now are the ones that can flip on their head and allow themselves to be carried by a different player on their team, depending on what the opponent's doing. That's not something Seoul's been able to do. It's been the Fleta show. And on top of it all, they seem to think, hey, Fleta's by far overperforming every other DPS on the team. Let's get him out of there. We don't need him.
Let's take him right out. Let's get Clockwork in.
Like, let's be real. This is exactly that conversation that we had at the beginning of the season about Houston. You don't. There's players you can't take out, and if you can afford not to. There's a reason Birdring never leaves London. There's a reason when Lynxer's healthy now, he's in there 100% of the time. New York's kind of one of those teams that has a little bit of an exception, right? Because they're
Their whole game plan
third guy is arguably when he's hot, their best player.
Right,
and,
but Jonak never comes out. Like,
right,
you could
right,
argue
and
that
he's the
Jonak
one-
is that player. Or
and
Mecco.
they argue that that's
Right.
what they say. That's what Arc told Taco
Yeah.
this weekend out there, is that, you know, their OP player that they build their strats around and their comps around is Jonak. It's not their DPS players. Say by Olby, yeah, he's the best tracer in the league. He's off over there getting healed from health packs because that's where he goes, and the team is centered around Jonak.
Right.
That's not what Soul's been able to do here. LA Valiant got a big win for them, had a big weekend for them, kept themselves in the playoff race. They needed this win really, really bad. Soul did as well to stay alive, or maybe not stay alive, but at least stay in the conversation and like in control of it.
Yeah.
And they lost it. So in the moment too, that's probably the worst part about this for Soul, is that in the moment when it was on the line, when it mattered the most, they crumbled.
Yeah. Which is interesting because Lunatic High has that tournament champion pedigree. Like,
they have that. Yeah, I don't expect this to be a long-term problem. It's just what's affecting them right now.
Yeah, I think the second DPS question and the figuring out, like, it seems like a lot of the teams, for better or for worse, have figured out to an extent what their strategy is in terms of subbing and in terms of players playing different positions. It seems like Soul just hasn't done that yet. It's like, why in the world does Fleta come out? I agree. What?
I don't know. They seem to give the second job to Munchkin for a while too, and the whole time to me, Bunny's the one that passed the eye test. I don't have the stats. They've got better stats than I do to look at the stats and compare it that way. So I'm not going to speak to the stats, but to the eye test, Bunny's been the better player over Munchkin. But yet Munchkin seems to be penciled in there, and then they're bringing in their other players a little bit too, which is fine. No matter who they play, it's
like
going to be Fleta. Yeah. No matter what you do, it's going to be Fleta's the number one by a large margin. But like, let's get some consistency. Let's get some synergy together, and then worry about when does your Pine come in, or, well, you know, what are the comps you're playing on this map. But that right now they've kind of lost that synergy that they seem to have. That was their big advantage going in, is that they've been together for a while. They're just plugging in a couple, frankly, better DPS players than they've had in the past. Why are they going down? And I don't know what it is, but I do feel very confident that they have the support staff and the infrastructure from the organization that it's not going to be a long-term issue.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to do the fancy stuff too early. Like, they're trying to, like, oh, well, we've got Bunny here for this specific niche thing, when really they need to be like, we just need to play our 6. We need to get the basics down, perfect that, and then we can iterate on that. Like, that's, with the exception of New York, who basically has always had the strategy of like, we're going to like mix and match our DPSs accordingly. Like, they came in like, this is our strategy. We're playing around Jonak. We're going to mix and match our DPSs. But everyone else, like Houston, great example of like, they tried week 1, they tried to do a bunch of fancy garbage, did not work at all. And then they're like, okay, well, we're going to play our 6, and like, we're going to swap out Bonnie when we need Boink, and we're going to swap out a couple other players here and there. And like, Clockwork came in when he needed to, which didn't really work out. But, they're like, this is our 6. We're playing the 6. Okay. We're going to get that. And like, maybe they're going to start working Clockwork into a role kind of like Pine, where he's playing a specific player, but you're not taking out, you should not be taking out Linkser for that. And like, in the same vein that Soul should not be taking Fleta out. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see if Soul does go down that road, or if they keep trying to do their fancy schmance. But I don't know. It seems like a lot of these things that maybe would have flown pre-Overwatch League, you're just getting punished for every little, like, you're getting punished for things like that. Like, oh, all of a sudden you don't have Fleta. Okay, great. Like, you're trying to like next level the team because you're not playing your best player. Think about that for a second. Think about why he's in the first place. But I don't know. Moving on, Thursday we saw Boston Uprising dumpster Philadelphia Fusion 4-0. We saw Bad Philly. Great. I love seeing Bad Philly.
Basically.
I mean, Boston has continued to show themselves as a top tier team. They're sort of like a playoff caliber team, whether or not they end up making it or not. Like, they were in the running for stage 1 playoffs. I could see them continuing that depending on how they adapt to the meta. Like, they have been a strong team, to say the least. that can contend with really.
I can agree with that.
As much as Death doesn't want to, like, pretend it's not Boston for a second. Just pretend it's those 6 players and they're on the Toronto Tempest expansion team and not Boston. Like those players and that, like, they have done a really, obviously they've exceeded all expectations because almost everyone had them at 12.
Yeah, except for the people that were putting Philly there for not showing up in the preseason.
Right. Which was me. Again, again,
worked out for you.
Yeah,
it probably looked better for you in the power rankings contest, but
yeah. But yeah, I mean, and Philly again showed that they can be countered. That if their DPSs don't come out and perform above average, that they're just not going to be there. Poco was out for a while. They put him back in, and he's just not. I mean, Poco has been fine. He's just not that dominant. Like, holy crap!
I'll say this: he's still getting, like, averaging 1 kill on every self-destruct he throws out there. But
yeah,
the team plays off for Philadelphia right now. Their dives just not quite synced up. They're a dark horse team, I think, in stage 2 to level up dramatically, because Fraggy's always, as much as his Winston's improved, and I've been really impressed by the level of play that he's brought to Winston. He's always been, like, the most PogChamp Reinhardt player in Overwatch.
Yep.
And I can't wait to see him get back to it. I hope he gets
Super
to.
Was pretty PogChamp back in the.
That's true. It was really close between the 2 of them. Yeah, Hammer soaked in the blood of his enemies, as ZP said. That was certainly super, not Fraggy. But at the end of the day, I mean, we've been watching Fraggy play for a long time. Mad respect for his beard when he's got it.
Yep.
But yeah, and listen, they're, like you said, Boston is a really good team, and Philly's really inconsistent. The one thing I will say is they seemed a little more consistent this week because the bad team showed up both times.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't want to take anything away from Boston here. They've shown to have very probably the best dive in Overwatch League. That's still all they've shown, but they've also shown that they run it differently enough than everybody else that being able to counter the standard dive doesn't mean you can counter Boston. They're beatable, but they're capable of taking anybody on any given day, and I don't expect that to change, because I don't think dive is going to completely leave the meta next time. They might need to develop a second strat, but they're still going to be able to punish people with this dive, because it's very unique, it's very different, and it's really good.
Well, you think about the main players for Boston. You've got Striker on Tracer. I don't think that's going to change, even if the meta changes. I mean, maybe, but I doubt it. We're still going to see Striker, and he can play other things as well. Dream Casper, just been an amazing DPS, unless he has to, like, flex over to, like, a third tank, depending on meta. Like, maybe he's just not good at that. I don't know. But no reason to think that he's not going to be dominant as well. And if triple tank holds up, I mean, Note has really, and he earned his starting spot.
Very much so.
He won it
handily.
He won it. Yeah. The week that I'm blanking, not Gamsu. Gamsu is their main tank. Kalios. Sorry, I'm thinking like Kelix, Gamsu, Kalios. The week that Kalios had to come out because he was injured or sick or something, Note came in and just won the spot. And I think that's really the only time we've seen that in Overwatch League. And I'm kind of surprised. Like, I would have thought that type of thing would have happened more, but I mean.
I think we're seeing it with the Gladiators. Like, I think Surefour is just kind of taking over for Asher.
Yeah.
We're definitely seeing in some other spots. Silk Thread's been falling off, and it's really been kind of ceding to Agilities. But this is one where it seems like they're going hard in that direction. The one thing I will say is, and this is, as you guys, we've said it a lot, but we've also been picking up a lot of new listeners. We weren't big into the Korean scene before, just by virtue of we wanted to cover in depth. We didn't want to cover on the surface, and they play at 5 in the our time. We're at work, and it was just really difficult to do. And a lot of these guys from Boston in particular come from not even the biggest. They were the standout performers for their teams in the Apex region, but they weren't on the best team, so we didn't get a lot of opportunities to see a guy like Kalios. From what I hear, his Zarya is likely better than Note's, but Note is another, like, he came from Toronto Esports, and we don't have just a huge playbook on them. So it's going to be really interesting to see, because at the end of the day, I do think there's something to be said for team synergy over player skill, because they're all pretty close in the player skill conversation. I don't care Korean, Western. I do not care anymore.
Yeah.
I've seen enough Overwatch League to think that on a mechanical skill level, with the amount of hours these guys are spending grinding, they're all right there. So whatever works best for the team is what's gonna happen here. But I don't know that we've seen the last of that position battle. That's a good call.
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, we might end up seeing both of them, honestly. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine taking out either Striker or Dreamcasper, but maybe one of them flexes. I don't know. It'll be interesting. But let's move on. We saw NYXL beat Florida Mayhem 3-0. Another case of XL just not wanting to take that fourth map, because why would you want to win 4-0 in a week?
Yeah, I mean, it was the second map. It was the Horizon Lunar Colony, and it's just kind of like
it's like
two
their
CP
bane.
Problems. I think they won. Like, if I'm remembering the match correctly, and there's been so much Overwatch, there's a decent chance I'm not. But I think it's a matter of, you know, they like had an advantage. Like I said, if I'm remembering it correctly, like they had a time advantage and just couldn't quite meet the, you know, get the tick
so
that
many
they needed.
times.
It's been a lot, and that's why they move things around, so that way the maps that can draw are at the beginning of the map pool now, instead of at the end, because now we know that New York didn't phone it in and just give up. It was just the way it worked. They're pro teams. You know, at the end of the day, if the Cleveland Browns played the New England Patriots 100 times, never mind, I can't finish that sentence.
The world would end and football would cease to exist. But yeah, I mean, it's really like they won handily. There's something like they're not like they have very dominant individual play, but they just can't they just never push it over. Like I rarely, I mean, part of it is superstition and part of it is gaming the pick'em system, but I rarely ever pick them 4-0 because
ABC always be closing.
Yeah, gotta be. But they just, I don't know, something a little bit off that keeps them from pushing over the edge to just like a dominant team. Like they're very good, very solid. I pick them favored against every team in the league, but I don't pick them 4-0ing most of the teams in the top half, like 3-1s, 3-2s. I think they'll get it, but something about like I can see other teams 4-0ing in a dominant fashion. I just don't see New York doing that. I don't know. But moving on, we saw the big one here. Houston Outlaws beat London Spitfire 3-1. Congrats on that one, Death.
Yeah, it was a big one. This was the whole playoff hopes, and this was the harder of the two matches. Yeah. I actually picked London here. Looking at the, you know, it's funny because I looked at the map pool and I go, oh no, these aren't Houston's best maps. But what I didn't do was look at how's London do on these maps. Because at the end of the day, listen, Eichenwald was the one, right, that Houston was going to be favored on. And they definitely won that one. It was pretty decidedly that, you know, their defensive hold was shy of the second point. So they were able to put that one away. They also took Anubis here, which they showed a little bit of a trouble with Anubis, and I think that one got flipped when they met in the playoffs later. And then we also had to me the big one here was the one that I overlooked when evaluating this matchup was how bad London has been on Oasis this stage. Yeah. They've been brutally bad there, and I for whatever reason I did forget it. And it was kind of the deciding factor, right? Because Dorado was London's best map. They did win that one. And if it was played on Ilios, London probably would have forced this to 5. And then we'd have been going to a Koth map, which again, not Houston's specialty. So it would have been really interesting to see how it would have played out if that map was flipped. Thankfully, it wasn't flipped. And Houston was able to get the win. Really a standout performances across the board from Houston in this match in particular, but shout outs to Cool Matt. This weekend, if you were at all thinking somebody was a better diva in Overwatch League, it better have been Meko.
I was gonna say.
And you should probably reconsider it, because I haven't, as good as Meko's been, I don't think, and he's a different style of player than Cool Matt, so it's easy to look at, you know, the kill feed impact of a player like Meko compared to Cool Matt and say he's better, but there's more to it. There's the appealing, every aspect, the cerebral aspect of Cool Matt's game was so on point this weekend. It was crazy to see.
The one play that he got in the top 10 plays of the week in our top 10 play video was amazing.
He eats up 2 support alts, kills 2 people, and like hard stops the push. It was absolutely nutty bananas. He like forces out the Zen ultimate, runs away from it, sends a self-destruct, and the Mercy doesn't know where it's coming from, and it's coming from like underneath the ground and up and over into this weird spot. And like so the Mercy pops Valk to get away from it, tries to dash away and can't do it in time because of how well placed it was. Shut down both support ultimates, killed 2 people, flipped the fight on its head instantaneously. He was a huge factor. The tanks will always be a huge factor for Houston. It's what they built their team around, but they really stood out here, I thought. And even in this meta, they're outgunned on the DPS side of things, right? I will put Linkser against literally anybody in Overwatch League and be very comfortable about it. I will put Jake Rat on on anybody. We'll see how he does on the other heroes. He's done great on Tracer. He's shown Genji. He's shown Pharah. He can play them all at a high level. But London is the best DPS in the Overwatch League. We've said that. We've thought that. It's been that way for a long time. They're starting to get it down. So this was just a big win overall for Houston, who was fighting for the chance to be in the playoffs, trying to overcome the loss to Seoul due to the Linkser's illness, things like that. Man, it was at the end of the day, though, it was just nice to see Linkser walk back out of that stage and start shooting people. But yeah, big win there, and not the last time we'll talk about these 2 heads up, so we can move on.
Yep. Moving on Friday, we saw Dallas Fuel finally get a win against I guess this was their second win. They the first 2-0 week for them, but they beat the LA Gladiators 3-1.
Yeah, this was the one I didn't expect them to win. I actually thought LA would win here, especially once we found out Effect was in Korea. Worth noting, if you were going to listen to the Blevins' trade idea and trade Effect to Seoul, you might send him to Korea to meet with the ownership and sign the contracts. I mean, it's not going to happen, but it's fun to talk about.
Apparently, everyone hates it, which is hilarious. I love that everyone hates that.
What the prediction? Yeah, you've been joking the whole time. So anytime you can be obviously joking and still upset people, that's definitely.
Oh my god, people are so mad about that. They're like, "Oh my god, stop talking about them." Okay,
yeah, no, it's the best.
It's going to happen, and you're going to all owe me $5 when it does happen. Every single person.
Telling us not to talk about something that we're obviously joking about is a sure way to make sure we bring it up for the next 17 episodes.
Yeah, it was my senior quote in high school.
It was, yeah. You actually signed my yearbook with that quote. It was pretty great. So yeah, looking at this matchup though, man, so it's so funny trying to remember back to these matchups after the hype of Saturday.
It was a million years ago. All I know is that like this was I feel like this was a must win for Dallas. I mean, we talked about it, like they needed that 3 wins to still be in contention. Huge morale boost for them to go 2-0 this week. I mean, LA Gladiators again, like firmly supplanting themselves right in the like middle, like unexciting middle bottom of the rankings. Like they'll beat the bad teams, they'll lose to the good teams, and I mean that's the first sign of Dallas maybe pushing themselves back up a little bit. Like they've been talking a big game about how they're working on stuff internally, how they're working on an internal strategy. They've talked about bringing on new players, et cetera. I mean, this week was a good week to really show strides in the right direction for them, even though they gave out 2 maps to Shanghai. But I think that's more of Shanghai actually being a team in some capacity. Like even if you're never going to win a match, like you still have like Undead is going to be able to take a couple of maps for you just because he's so dominant.
Yeah, and listen, to me, the biggest part about this matchup was the mental game that happened with it. And I'm not going to read the Taimu tweet because we keep our show PG-13. But he basically said, we're going to easy clap the LA Gladiators. That's it. I'm done screwing around. Let's go. Okay. And then, we got a little nervous because Effect's still not there. But at the end of the day, it's exactly what happened. This matchup was, I want to say it was the last map. So it was like 3-0 and decided. Yep, it's exactly what happened. And then Dallas did not show up for Dorado. Got 3-0'd there. So they still need to work on that mental aspect of the game. Yes, they got the 2-0 week that they needed to stay alive in the playoff hunt. But they got it there. They got there. At the end of the day, that's all that really matters. We're a team that we expect to get better in the Mercy meta. Their support players. I mean, Chipsogen, get back to smiling, bud. You used to smile. I remember seeing it. You weren't forced to play Mercy. You weren't miserable all the time. Your team was winning. Get it back. they're just in a funk right now. Hopefully
Yeah.
they can get a spark with the signings, AKM, whoever else they're bringing in. I think we do expect at least one more. XQC is going to come back, so if they do want to still play Winston, they should be able to bring him in for that. Hastro did send out a support tweet, not directed at XQC, but I'm never going to give up on a player. And this is, of all the tweets I've hated from Hastro this weekend, this is the one that I loved. I'm not going to give up on a player until I have the opportunity to help them, support them, give them what they need, and try to help them meet their goals as a professional player.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say XQC. I don't know what his goals are as a professional player. Safe to say he hasn't met those goals yet. So, they're going to keep him on by all accounts. I'm really happy by the attitude, the support, everything that they've shown him. And yes, I think you can be happy about that and not support the actions of the player that got him in trouble to begin with. So just delete your tweet. I don't care. I'm clearly not supporting what he said or anything that happened. I think his fans need to all drink a nice tall glass of calm down juice, and just leave everything that happens,
also known as G Fuel.
G Fuel, no lead. But yeah, it's one of those things, guys. Like, XQC had a track record, right? Like, this was his third time. So anytime somebody does something that's off color or not quite okay, like, you don't need to get into a huff and bring it up to XQC in a stream and get him all worked up, because he's going to get worked up about it because he clearly doesn't get it, right? Like, you can tell when he talks, he just doesn't get it yet, and I think he'll get there. Hope he gets there. But like, everything that happens, it's not a comparison. When the guy's on his third strike and the other people are on their first strike, Nate talked about this. You get a warning, then you get fined. You might skip the warning depending on the severity of the incident. But like, listen, this was his like third issue or second, whatever it was. It was an escalation problem, and also, don't look to the league to suspend people for lesser offenses than what XQC did for an entire stage, because the league didn't suspend XQC for an entire stage. That was his team.
Fuel. Yep.
So let's everybody calm down with everything that happens going forward, please. I get it. We get it. You're a Fuel fan. You love XQC. That's not a problem. Don't compare apples and oranges here, okay? That's not what needs to happen. Anyways, back to the match. I hate talking about this stuff. I don't know why I just went on a tangent about it.
I'm just gonna let it happen.
Right?
I didn't even start it.
Yeah, it might make people mad and get clips. But yeah, I don't really know. This match was not super telling to me. The result was super important and pivotal for the Dallas Fuel. Keeps them alive, gives them the opportunity to rebound, and I really honestly think, even though it's one match, right? If you flip this result, I think it makes a world of difference for their odds for the playoffs. So good on them. They're back within shouting distance. Still a far cry from where they want to be, but I think they're going to get there.
They put themselves in a position to scrape into the playoffs potentially. Without
and there's
the win
no
here,
scarier sixth seed in the standings list than the Dallas Fuel moving up there.
Unless maybe Philly, if they decide to bring good Philly every time. But moving on, we saw Seoul Dynasty win 3-2 versus San Francisco. What happened here, Death?
More of the same. More support alt stacking, more DPS inconsistency. Listen, I mean, they lost on Temple of Anubis to San Francisco. Seoul Dynasty got, I believe, full held on point 1 of Temple of Anubis on their attack against the San Francisco Shock. If that doesn't wake you up to the fact that there's problems that not playing Mercy won't fix for this team right now, it'll help fix them. But that should be more than enough to convince you that there's some issues here.
There's some stuff, and it is not good.
Yeah, it's definitely not all great. They got the W. They're still in a playoff seed. The nice thing about being as good as Seoul was going into the season is that when you fall from grace, you fall down to like the 5th seed or the 6th seed, and you're still just
they have
fine.
A buffer. Yeah, they have a buffer.
Right. There's no main issue there.
The wrong way. They're trending the wrong direction.
The key with stuff like this is to not let it last, right? You just got to find it. You've got to fix it. You got to address it. We don't know if they're going to make any additions or any subtractions, anything like that. We'll have to see. If anything, like we've talked about, they could probably stand for an upgrade in the DPS2 department. But if nothing else, just calm down, settle it down, just rein everything in,
figure it out,
back to basics, and get a baseline. That's the key. Experimenting and subbing is great, and it can be an asset, but it doesn't help you if you don't have a baseline, a set, comfortable spot to go to when things are falling apart. And when you're subbing from the get-go, you don't have that.
Yeah, they need to figure out how to do the basics before they can be the Picassos. Like they need to be masters of good art, of regular art, before they can start doing weird Picasso stuff.
I wanted you to say master of their own domain. Master of their domain.
King of the castle.
We need more Seinfeld references.
King of the castle.
We really, really do.
5 points for anyone who gets that reference. But moving on, we had LA Valiant 4-0 Shanghai Dragons. Is there even a sentence is there even a sentence to say here?
Yeah, LA had to 4-0 the Shanghai Dragons. So when you have to 4-0 somebody that is making improvements, took 2 maps off Dallas, took maps off the Seoul Dynasty a little bit earlier in the stage.
Yeah.
This was an impressive win from the LA Valiant, not because of the strength of the opponent, but because of the situation. This was their last match of the stage.
Yeah.
This was what would keep them in the playoff hunt. It was a rough go to get in, and obviously it didn't work out for them. But honestly, you flip one map in the second match on Saturday, and they're in. So it was a close run there from the Valiant. Good on them, keeping their head in the game, knowing what they needed to do to make it into the stage playoffs, and doing everything within their power, for this week to be able to get there. They had a phenomenal week, and really something they needed to have, because it's something I mentioned in chat a little bit. They've fallen off, and if you really sit down and you look, you'll see week 1. Wow, look at those guys. They look great. Week 2, holy cow, they're for real. Like, they're no joke. And week 3, it's like, losing it, like, lost a step.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay, though. Get it back. Still a really solid team. Week 4, it's like, oh, all right. Well, and so this was a big week. This was kind of a get-right week for them. And I expect that to carry over. They're not a team that they're so deep. I don't expect them to have meta problems, anything like that. Right. So keep a solid baseline, get everything locked up, and just keep, I don't think we've seen their best meta, is what I'm trying to say. They've probably got room to be better on the stage overall than they were this stage. So we'll have to wait and see what meta that is for them. Might be the tanks, because the deep rosters, I think, will adjust better to the heavy tank compositions.
Right. I mean, we still have yet to see Numlocked or Grim Reality hit the stage in the regular season. They have those assets. In stage 1, obviously we didn't see them. We didn't really see a place for them to come in, I guess. But it'll be interesting to see if they can, if they do work them in, if it's maybe a meta thing, or if they really are just develop it. Like, is Grim Reality like the player they picked up to be season 2 MVP or season 3 MVP, or is he waiting for his meta?
And hey, dig this, Valiant. You have 11 players. You've got a player who in Numlocked who's been actively upset, and rightfully so, about being a professional player and grinding comp all day. Sign one more guy, and then you can scrim with them. You can scrim your B team. Like, holy smokes, wouldn't that be crazy if you could let all your players play?
Death, you're confirmed better than Numlocked, right? Like, you won the 1v1.
I've got the 1v1.
You can be number 12.
Send me my contract so I can try and use it to leverage a spot on the Outlaws and not drink it.
Yeah, actively throw for the Valiant. Now, get in on the practice squad. I'll do it. I will play a definitely maybe average Lucio for your practice squad. That's about as much as I can promise. Anything else is iffy. Maybe a slightly below average Moira too.
For what it's worth, they would need a flex support to fill their 12th spot. So if it's just a matter of scrims, I've already got hours in the same scrim as Numlock. So hit me up. Maybe me, killing him will provide some synergy. I don't know how that would work, but maybe. I don't know. It happened once, and I've just got to make sure I bring it up as many times as I can before I run into him in comp and just get slaughtered. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep bringing it up until I get vengeance. And then whenever he sees me, oh man, it's just gonna be, he's gonna have all the momentum he needs, or all the motivation he needs.
Yeah, and once, if and when Mangachu gets into the league, we can bring up the Grouchy Desperados win. as well. But
yeah, I've got a larger sample size against Mr. Mangachu.
True. But we had the big day Saturday, and we started off with New York Excelsior winning I'll put it right now, the most important match of the day, 3-2 versus London Spitfire. I mean, we saw it happen. What was the scoop for this one?
The scoop for this one was that those are two very, very closely built competitive teams.
Yeah.
They just phenomenal Overwatch. When London and New York get together, you can expect a barn burner, if you will. This one went back and forth. Yeah, a slobber knocker. Pandemonium. If you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you'll know that phrase very well. But yeah, listen, they went back and forth here. This was first map goes London, next two go New York, fourth map goes London, and then the tiebreaker obviously went to New York since they got the win. Locked up the first seed at the end of stage one,
and at the beginning of stage two, notably.
Yep, and at the beginning of stage two, you can't take that away from Blevins, no matter how hard you try, London fans. You can't take the number 2 seed away from me, no matter how hard you try. Listen, I'm super happy for you guys. You won the stage.
I'm not, but
our teams won the matches that counted for more than money. And we won't let you forget that, just like you won't
and
let
let's
us
just
forget
say
the playoffs either.
That the ultimate high noon bump of being the two teams that we actively and publicly root for are number 1 and 2 in the league. I'm just putting that out there, that I don't think there's any other podcast or show or any other Overwatch medium that has actively influenced the standings of Overwatch League Season 1 more than High Noon Podcast. Just putting it out there.
I will agree that I don't think there's any podcast that has actively affected the standings more than us. That is an undeniable fact.
Right. Right. Because no, definitely not. I don't think any other podcast dare pick sides like we do. Like, we've just been very open that we're biased.
Yeah, well, to me, that's the only way to go about it, right? Like, I mean,
because you're going to have a favorite team, whether you say you do or not.
So why should I hide it from anybody and try to pretend like it's not there? And listen, I think there's been times. It's so funny too, because I feel like people are. It's a little rougher for me, right? Like, they want us. Like, there's a popular sentiment in Discord that I'm a little biased, and. Listen, point to me to my wrong analysis about the Houston Outlaws. That's all I want to say is point to when I've been wrong.
I mean, point to me when I've been wrong.
To lose to London, because that's the only time I've seen it be wrong.
Point to me when I've been wrong. I've said New York is the best team in the league since the beginning, and it ended up being true. So, just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I can write that argument, but I can write both sides of that argument for both of our teams here in this conversation. But yeah, listen, it's as far as the New York match goes against London, this was incredibly close, as was the next London versus New York matchup we're going to talk about. They were using Pine. Listen, if you were wondering, is Pine just somebody they bring in to style on people they think they can beat? No, they brought him in here. I think they even started one of the matches with him out there for the first map. Just a really impressive performance here from both teams, and London squeaked out a close win. Spoiler alert, Saturday was all super close wins from everybody across the board. And this one was, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on it with the next one coming up, but it was super close.
What's worth noting here is that London getting the first map win secured them into the playoffs. There was a world where New York 4-0s them and they don't make the playoffs, so that was a milestone for them. The next two two wins, I believe, from New York secured them. Winning the next two secured them as number 1 seed in the league. Number 1 seed for stage 1 playoffs. So that was interesting. And then the last 2 matches were basically played off to see. The last match was basically the last map was basically just for map differential, which New York ended up winning. But yeah, we'll talk more about those matches next, or in a little bit. Then we saw Houston Outlaws versus Boston Uprising. A lot on the line for, surprisingly enough, more than just the two teams playing.
Yeah, so this scenario was if Boston won by a 2-map spread, So 3-1 or 3-0. You know, they had to be positive 2 maps on the day in order to make the playoffs here. They just would have been in. If they won by 1 map, the Los Angeles Valiant would have been in. And of course, the Houston Outlaws were the team that controlled their destiny. So all they had to do was win to be able to make it. And notably, the win here, the 3-2 victory, was good for the number 2 overall seed. They are locked in a 4-way tie at the 7-3 record. So it's not a large margin that they hold the number 2 seed. But we've talked about how important map differential is here, guys. They have to be playing. They have to be doing everything they possibly can to win after they've already won 3-0. They have to be doing what they can to go out there and win that first map. I don't like teams that are like throwing in backups against the Shanghai Dragons. When you look at teams like Philly that did that and have a winning record by 2 games, but are -4 in the map differential, well, that's because you gave up 2 maps to the Shanghai Dragons that you didn't need to do.
Right.
Now, stage 1, you want to do some experimenting, things like that.
Maybe,
but at the end of the day, yeah, maybe, right? If you can't look at your team and evaluate who should be the starters, then that might be a bigger problem that you have. But there's other ones with some legitimate questions and some players they want to try to get some introduction to, and I think there's some merit to getting everybody on the stage so that way in the event that you need to call them up, they're not there for the first time. They've at least sat in that chair before and know what it's like and know what the crowd noise is like in your ears, competing with the headphones. All that stuff makes a difference. But anyways, back to the Outlaws versus Boston match. This was a phenomenal match for my money. As close as all the other ones was, this was a playoff match, right? Because Houston had to win to make it, and Boston had to win and get a little help to make it. So both these teams were already in the stage playoffs. Houston comes out big, wins the Eichenwald map. They finished the stage without dropping Eichenwald, at least in the main games here. They did lose it in the playoffs, but yeah, they finish a 5-0 record here on Eichenwald. They do drop Temple of Anubis to the Boston Uprising, and then Koth on Ilios. It was a problem. Boston won that handily. But the surprise to me was, I mean, Dorado's kind of a bit of a dive map. I mean, Houston's been really good at it with their anti-dive. But especially like second stage, like there's just such good high ground accessibility when you're playing dive that I just feel like a dive team is really well positioned on that map. But Houston does take that one, and then the Koth map they needed to win on Lijiang Tower, and they were able to pull it out. Man, this is a difficult one to really analyze because it was so close that, I mean, how do you pick which team is the better team of the two? It's really very, very difficult to say. As a result, it's this close to say it's definitive, and I don't think it is. Listen, I admit, and I'll cop to being too low on Boston on the overall, but at the end of the day, they kind of were what we thought they were, and that we have to give them the credit of like learning and adapting and getting that synergy so fast that it's almost a little scary to think of what the upward momentum for this team, like how far can it go?
Right.
And listen, if you watch the Houston Outlaws press conferences after, they talk about this matchup, about how Boston's got the best dive in the league. And if for no other reason, then they've got probably like the weirdest dive in the league. Their tanks are so good at just being hidden and invisible in these weird high ground spots where you don't know where the dive's coming from. So even when you know they're coming in and they're about to dive on you, where is Gamzu coming from? You have no idea. Where is Note coming from? You don't know. They're in a spot nobody else would play it from. Nobody else would come at you from. So it was very difficult for Houston to adapt and react to that dive that I thought their compositions that they've been running would be very well suited to do.
Yep.
And that's a little bit why, that's why they won, right? Because they were so good at countering the best dive in the league. But if anybody's questioning whether or not Boston's dive is, easy to counter, which I was a little bit wondering myself, I think the book is officially closed. The Boston is a super solid team. They're in the top 4 conversation to me, especially while Seoul's kind of on the outside of it.
Right.
But we will have to wait and see. It's going to be interesting.
Where did I put them?
Yeah,
I've got it's a little spoiler for my write-up this week. I've got them in the top 4 right now for power rankings. So
that's fair. I mean, I think I would put them above the Valiant, right? Like it took them a little longer to get there. But if you flip that shot, like if they play against the Shock right now, I think we all know who would probably win that matchup. So you flip that one loss there, and then they're right in it. You know, it was a 3-2 loss, I believe, to the Shock. So if you flip it one, their map differential's one higher. They would be at 5, you know, behind the LA Valiant. But to me, the question here, like I said, the meta looks like it's moving into the triple tank. And I know everybody likes to say, oh, Houston's going to have problems with the new meta, things like that. Boston really might too. Dive's not going anywhere, but there's going to be maps where it's not nearly as effective. And there's going to be places where you're not going to want to run it. And if those are just like auto loss scenarios for Boston, it's going to be a little bit on the brutal side. And from everything we've seen from Beat, Junkrat doesn't look like it's disappearing. It's maybe going to shrink. Its role's going to shrink a little bit. You're not going to like be playing it on cough maps and stuff like that. But listen, one of the best characters against heavy tank compositions is Junkrat.
It's going to depend. Like, I mean, it's almost not worth like talking about because we aren't in the scrims and we don't know like what level are they going to get to. Like, is level 1 triple tank, so you run Junkrat, and then it's like, okay, well, triple tank's just running Zarya now, so Zarya is dominant, and now like having the best Zaryas is what's going to make it great. So like, which teams have the best Zarya? Okay, Soul already really good. Kalios is apparently a very good Zarya. So like, is that what the key is, or is it something like, is it a level above that? Is it a level below that? Is it something completely different? We don't know. So it'll be interesting. It'll definitely be telling. The first couple of weeks are going to be telling for Boston. Like, did they just say, hey, we're just going to still run dive? Like, how funny would that be if like we're just going to run dive, but it's going to be a little bit different. It'll be interesting to see. But I want to see, like, was it a fluke that Boston was able to get this good just because of the meta? Or was it because the players are able to play one comp, not necessarily dive? They can just play one comp this good and get to that level, regardless of the comp. I'm very interested to see if they can get to the level that they're at now with the change in the meta. Like, can they run triple tank as good as they ran dive in stage 1? And more importantly, are they able to do it quicker than they did in stage 1? Because right now, like in the standings wise, they're a playoff team right now. If the season ended today, they would be in the stage 1, or they'd be in the season 1 playoffs. However, like 12-8 at the end of stage 2 might not be good enough. Which would, if they go 6-4 again, that might not be good enough. I think, like, if they play up to the level that they're at now, they can stand to do better than that.
And at the end of the day, I think I could probably work that conversation of, well, the meta is going to change, and is this team going to get better, or are they going to get it worse? I can write that argument on both sides for probably 12 teams in the Overwatch League. Listen, it's not a punishment. It's not a knock on the Houston Outlaws that Jake got himself to be the best Junkrat in Overwatch League within stage 1. That's not a negative for the team. We've seen him pick up Tracer and play it better than I thought he would be able to do. We've seen him play Pharah at a high level. We've seen him play Genji at a high level within the Overwatch League. And we don't know that Junkrat's going anywhere. So if Junkrat is still a tool that's in their kit, I could make the same argument about London right now. That, well, maybe they wouldn't be the stage 2 champions because Junkrat's out. Because what did they use to win? Right? They didn't use it. They played dive all stage. And then they got bodied by Houston on Thursday here. And then, what do you know, on Saturday, they roll out and they're just playing mono Junkrat. And that's what takes the playoffs for them. To me, it's honestly, it's lazy analysis. You have to do it, right? You have to look and project how these teams are going to do. But to act like it's set in stone, like, oh, this team's going to struggle next season, it's just not right. And it's not right to say that if like you said, if Dive's going to leave, it doesn't mean Boston's going to be bad. It means I'm worried they might be.
Right.
But like, they've just clearly been playing dive and figuring out dive. And guess what? They do it better than everybody else. So if next meta they decide to do triple tank and focus entirely on that, I have no reason or valid argument to say that they won't learn to do that better than literally everybody else. So I don't know. To me, the whole kind of argument is it's like when you have the greatest quarterback of all time conversation and you're comparing somebody that played 40 years ago versus somebody that's going to retire in 2 years.
Right.
Like, come on, it's stupid. But yeah, let's have that conversation because it's fun.
Because everyone knows LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. I'm saying it now. Like, fight me on Twitter. Message me on Twitter. I'll make at least 17 arguments that show you that LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. The first of which is like Michael Jordan's like 50 right now, so there's no way he'd be able to take on LeBron James.
Put him on the court. Let's go. Let's see. What
if he's so much better, why isn't he playing? There's two arguments right there. So I've got 15 more lined up and ready.
And if you want to tell me Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, I don't know. I would think the greatest anything of all time on a football field can catch, and he's the worst Super Bowl receiver in NFL history. Yeah. I'm just saying. It's
I
out
haven't
there.
seen him get any sacks.
Would the greatest quarterback of all time have lost to Nick Foles, the backup? I don't know. I can't answer that definitively. I'm just saying it raises the question. But anyways, so yeah, we're still talking about Boston versus Houston. This is going to be a matchup, and I'm pumped about it, right? Because like I've talked about, and like I've said, it's way more fun to hate and beat a team, or to hate a team that you're beating when they're good, right? Like I don't want to be like kicking a team when they're down. I want to be knocking them off their pedestal and their high horse. And like, it's just a more satisfying feeling. So at the end of the day, I'm glad Boston is overperforming. The league will be better for it. I don't have to like it. It's just got to be what happens. And you know, they take the good with the bad. You know, I want I want Robert Kraft to lose his investment here. But at the end of the day, I want the Overwatch League to succeed more. So, you know, it's good that they're here. Right. Silver linings, guys. Not everything's got to be.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that they kind of turn themselves into the underdog good guys, so they really need to just start doing better so that we can hate them more.
Who's that?
Boston.
Boston? Oh, they'll just start cheating soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll get there. But that was
the Hack's monitor just randomly turned off in the tiebreaker map when he was going against Boston. Do I know what happened? No. Did I consider the possibility that maybe something went down? I absolutely did.
All we can agree upon here is that LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. But moving on, we saw the last regular season match. I was literally at Taco Bell when this happened. We saw Philadelphia Fusion beat Florida Mayhem 3-2. Bad Philly showed up, and Florida actually looked decent, but they still lost. So, you know.
Yeah, Bad Philly showed up. Florida, listen, they looked like on paper, like, you know what I mean? To the eyeball test, it looked like one of their best matchups of the stage. And I hope it was. And I hope it wasn't just that the Bad Philly was around all weekend this weekend and you know, allowed them to be in it longer than they needed to be. But I don't know. I can't get myself there, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it was more about Philadelphia, you know, slipping and continuing to have problems that are becoming more. Like, we got to stop calling them inconsistent soon, because for a couple weeks they've been pretty consistently in the wrong direction.
Right. They just spike. They spike really high and then they fall really low. Not conducive to. It's conducive to winning a small form tournament, not conducive to necessarily doing well in a league. And with them at finishing the stage at 6-4 with a bad map differential. Boston is at the 6th seed, also. At 6-4, they have a +10 map differential. Philly, same record at 6-4, -4. So they're winning matches, perhaps that they shouldn't win against New York, but they're losing, and they're losing bad.
And Houston. Just throw Houston in there.
Yeah, Houston too.
Make me feel good.
No, to be completely honest, I would pick Houston this week if it was Houston versus Philly, which it might be. I don't know what the matches are next week or week 1 of stage 2, but we'll talk about that on next episode.
They're spicy, I'll tell you that. If you like,
that's right. We're both playing against
Saturday.
Yeah, we're both playing against London. Oh man, I can't wait for London to start off 0-2.
Boy, London, we certainly hate you. We hate you so much right now.
Like, we made it very easy. They made it very easy for the podcast to just really hate one team. That's the London Spitfire right now. So, come fight me, Bishop. We love you. You used up your high noon bump.
It's no over. Longer. That's it.
It is way over. And as a matter of fact, you took a little too extra, so you actually owe us. Okay, just saying. But moving on. So that was the end of stage 1. Everything after this does not matter for the regular season. So We can wipe our hands clean of it. The standings, I'm going to
We're
go.
not even talking about it. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we will talk about it, but I'm going to go over the standings going into week 1 of stage 2 right now. We've got New York Excelsior at 9-1. They're in first place. Then we have in second place with a plus 17 map differential. We have Houston Outlaws tied in terms of win-loss record, but with a plus 15, we have London Spitfire, and then exactly boo. And then in fourth place, we have Los Angeles Valiant 7-3, but plus 13, and then we have Seoul Dynasty 7-3 with only a plus 9. In sixth place, which again, remember, season 1 playoffs cut off at 6, so technically would be a playoff caliber team right now. Boston Uprising at 6-4 with a plus 10, like we said, and then Philadelphia Fusion also 6-4 with a minus 4 map differential. Then we go to 8th place. We have Los Angeles Gladiators at 4-6 with a negative 10. We have San Francisco Shock with 3-7 with a negative 6. Dallas Fuel at 3-7 as well with negative 11. Florida Mayhem 1-9 with negative 22, and then Shanghai Dragons at the full Monty, the Cleveland Browns, if you will, the 0-10 with a negative 30 map differential. So, yeah, oof is right. So that's what it's going to look like going into stage 2. Those are your standings. Can't take that away from me. All you people who are asking me how I feel about getting reverse swept in the stage 1 playoffs. It was an exhibition game. Okay. Yes, they ended up with less money, but I don't care. But let's.
Yeah, we didn't stand to make any money off of it, so it's hard to be too upset about the outcome, especially when the quality of the matches were so high.
So good, such good Overwatch.
Yeah, it was really phenomenal. But let's get into the first one here. Second versus third. It was the Houston Outlaws versus the London Spitfire here, the eventual champs. Listen, at the end of the day, we looked at this map pool, and I said to myself, just win one of the first 3. Like if they don't get 3-0'd, they're going to win this one. That's my honest to God what I thought was going to happen. And Dorado, the one map they lost before in the first meetup this week with this team, they win that. That's the first map. Then they drop Ilios. No questions asked. 100,000 million% what I expected to happen. Moving on. I thought they had a decent shot at Temple of Anubis. Not so much. Get going full held on the first point. And obviously that's where things get a little murky and you start to get a little nervous. But going into Eichenwald, haven't lost there yet, so we should be fine. And I remember Blevins, and I'm sure you'll remember this very specifically. I'm like, what is London doing? They're not going to beat Houston by running the Houston composition against Houston in a map that they've been playing on at all stage, haven't dropped. Like, it's not going to work. Totally worked, you guys. They shut them down. Listen, if I had to guess as to what happened here, the hype for Houston got a little out of control. They maybe didn't get to settle. You know, I heard a lot of good things from them when they were in between matchups, things like that, talking about we just need to keep kind of an even keeled energy throughout the day so that we're not spiking and then falling and it doesn't happen at the wrong time. And they stopped showing up. They didn't take a map. You know, they won the first map. Great. They didn't take a point in the next map. They didn't take a point in the next map, and they didn't take a point in the third map, and then they were done. And I think it just kind of spiraled away from them and got away from them quick. London adapted better in the moment, on the spot, to what Houston was doing. They did it by copying them, right? Like, so, you know, slight credit to Houston there. But at the end of the day, you've got to beat the opponent that's in front of you, playing the comp they're playing. And I think Houston was very ready for them to dive into them. It didn't happen. And they paid for it. And London did a phenomenal job of reading the situation. And listen, the only upset part here to me was just how dejected they looked when it happened, right? Like they were just, the Lynxer was just, like it was, you can tell it was such a letdown for them. I guess in the presser afterwards, you know, they were very subdued. It was a much different Houston team. Obviously, you know, you suffer a loss like that, it's gonna affect you. But at the end of the day, I'm really proud of these guys. Like you said, it was an exhibition match. Yeah, it was for some bucks, but their salaries cover their living expenses, and they probably don't got a lot of time to spend money right now anyways. So I think they'll do okay. And this is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. At the end of the day, we're not going to remember who won the stage 1 champion playoffs. You know, when the season ends, we're going to
remember.
We're going to be talking about, if you're a London fan, you'll probably remember it, but that's just going to be because you're watching New York or Houston hold the trophy. So you've got to cling to what you have.
Right.
But yeah, so listen, it was a phenomenal match. I don't want to take anything away from the London Spitfire, but it did feel a little bit like Houston just kind of not fell apart really. Cause like they were still playing well, but they just couldn't put it together. It just kind of got away from them some. Yeah. And London is a really phenomenal team with DPS players that will punish you if you're making mistakes. Bonnie through the second half of the stage, despite him being a very solid Mercy player throughout the entirety of the stage and really helping the team and being a staple for them, there was a lot of fights where he was dying early on. And
yeah,
that was,
I remember specifically being like, up, Bonnie through again, up, Bonnie through again, up, Bonnie.
Bonnie down. And I don't know that was Bonnie's fault, right? Because we're going to talk about a similar scenario in the finals here coming up in a minute. And it was just a rough performance here. They didn't get to Junkertown, though. I'll tell you this: if they get to Junkertown, it was going to be New York versus Houston, and it was going to be a tense apartment here watching that matchup. Because that would have been, if it was any other team but Houston, but New York and Houston, like it would have just been okay. It would have been what it is now, right? Yeah. But just having that extra podcast stress would have made it a little bit different, and I'm almost glad it didn't go down that way. There would have been some smack talking and some hurt feelings a little bit maybe, but nothing that would have been too bad. I don't know, nothing to say here. Big props to London for adapting, showing their ability to roll their DPS players out there and maintain a high level of play. They didn't do a ton of switching, but they did do a little bit, and they adapted to a new composition, played it as well if not better than Houston here. Certainly on Eichenwald played it better than Houston, no doubt about that. And it just had a great performance here, and it's not the last great performance they have.
Yeah, it just seemed like, I mean, this continues over to the New York match as well. It's like, it seems like in the time off that they had, they studied the match that was played, and they figured out exactly what they needed to do. They came to the conclusion that, okay, we're going to copy Houston's strat. They're not going to be ready for it. We know, like they can plan for what we're going to do. We're going to do something different. If they try to do something different, we are going to play better than them. We're going to play we know we're going to play what they want to play. So if they're going to counter what they're going to play, we already know what to do there. We know how to beat that, or it's not going to work because they beat us. Yeah, they put themselves in a good position strategically, and they have and London has the players to back up these almost differences and changes, which is great for them. And we saw that with New York as well. Obviously, we'll just move right along. We saw New York come out strong and win the first 2 maps, and then end up getting reverse swept. And it was very much like not close in the last games. Like New York, they did the thing that we've seen them do time and time again in the stage. But they did it 3 times in a row where like they're doing all right. They have they almost full hold on Numbani, and then they end up holding on point B, which is amazing. And then they don't even take point A. They don't even take the first point. It's like, what? Like London knew exactly what they needed to do. They figured out like, okay, we need to focus Ark and Jonak. Like SBB is going to win his matchup. Keep him distracted as much as we can. Focus heavily on Ark and Jonak. Like those are our targets. If they get taken down or disrupted, like they're very much in a worse position.
Yeah, New York had no problems defending at any point throughout this match. That was never their issue or their bugaboo. It was just a matter of being able to attack into the anti-dive, the Houston comp, the McCree and Junkrat combo with the Orisa or with whatever tank they were running at the time. The anti-dive does run the dive tanks a little bit as well. Listen, they just, I mean, London, for how quickly they picked it up, we don't know how much they were working on it before they decided to show it. They might have been scrimming on it for 3 weeks and then sandbagged it for this day. We don't really
basically
know.
Could have, right? It would make sense if they did, because they lost
Yeah,
some matches they probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, and the composition wasn't a surprise. Like, Houston's been running it the whole time. A couple other teams have picked it up. A lot of teams have picked it up and run it some.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen another team pick it up and adopt it all in like London did in this scenario. But at the end of the day, on the attack, it was the same thing. London's DPS players were getting to the back line of New York, just like they were getting to Bonnie. When I look at the notes, I went through this finals and I did my detailed notes because I wasn't sure how we were going to do the episode. And here's the notes that I have for the last few fights that decided it here. And this was: Ark pops Volk early on point 2 for their first fight, but he gets caught in a Junkrat mine and he gets or a Junkrat trap and he gets killed. Then there's a huge Prophet tire that stalls the next push by killing Ark and Jonak in one go. Then Ark gets picked by Junkrat on their approach, and on the next fight, Ark is forced to Valkyrie first. Jonak gets picked, and then the fight is gone. So Ark is forced into a position where he has to use his ultimate to not die. His other support dies; he can't keep him up, and that's kind of the end of it. London disengages, waits for the Valk to go out, pushes him back. And then in the final fight, Ark gets caught out by another tire, and a Bedos from Transcendence comes in and closes out the map. So listen, I'm not blaming Ark. I'm not saying he did anything wrong. It could have been the peeling for him. I'd need to watch the fights 5 or 6 times to really get down to it and figure out, who was really to blame for the situation. But at the end of the day, it just didn't work out for him. He just was getting killed. He was under too much pressure, and they ended up falling. So can't take anything away from the London Spitfire here. They played the situation perfectly. They weathered the storm. They were the team that played 3 maps or 3 matches in this day. The other teams only played 2. It didn't matter. Like, there was constantly things stacked up against London here. New York, I think, was a firmly better team. I think it's really close, especially in this meta between London and Houston. But they out-strategized, and they took it that way. And I don't even know that there's anything Houston could have done, right? Like, this wasn't shown. How do you prepare for them to run the anti-dive and have a good plan to beat your mirror match composition, right? Like, in what fighting game isn't the mirror match the ultimate bad guy, the one that you get stalled on the most, right? It's difficult to figure out how to beat what you're doing with the same exact pieces. They obviously line up really well. So London was probably better prepared in the sense that I will bet you any money, expecting to play Houston going in after they lost to them, and said, well, let's find a scrim opponent that'll run the Houston comp against us for 6 hours straight, or find the other half of our team that'll do it, and nobody even has to know. So this could have been, this could be the first inkling that having the full 12 is just significantly better, because they were able to hide something, bring it out when the tournament mattered. The only thing I want to touch on with New York, and I don't want to bury him for it because it was so close, but New York's got a little bit of history of choking here. There's a reason that Luxury Watch Bluehead doesn't have an Apex title. And this is the only knock I had on New York, and why I didn't have him at the top of my power ranks and all these things, is because they just, it's not even, and I haven't seen enough of it in the big moment to know for sure that it's them choking, or if it's just the other team getting the better of it, right? But at the end of the day, this type of thing is always a stigma until you win it.
Right.
So this was an opportunity for New York to bury that, and it just didn't quite work out. So something to keep an eye on going forward. We have no reason to worry about New York in the stages and in the regular season matchups. But it's kind of always been what I've had my eye on and what I've been looking at about them as we go into these playoff scenarios. So I did really want to see New York take it down for that sake, because we love bare hands. I'm a very big New York fan. I do really, really like them, assuming they're not playing Houston. So it's one of those things. I want them to kick that trend, because if there's a team not named Houston that I want to hoist the trophy at the end of this season, it's the New York Excelsior. So hopefully they can turn that around. New York probably benefits more from taking down one of these stage playoffs than all 11 other teams. Yeah,
I definitely, we've seen London or GC Busan, beat this almost exact same thing happened in Apex when GC Busan beats Lunatic High in Apex. Like, GC Busan on paper worse team than Lunatic High, and they plan for them. They know exactly what they're going to do. They game plan for them. They counter it. They're not, and Lunatic High's not ready for it. Same sort of thing happened here. Those last maps, they countered what New York was doing, and they weren't able to adapt it on the fly. I mean, you look at the last map on Dorado when New York is attacking. Birdring, I don't think got touched. I don't think Birdring was on Widowmaker, never was touched or contested or anything, and just gets pick after pick after pick, slowing down the fights, wasting time. They get one pick, okay, they have to go back. Oh, Libero gets picked, they have to go back. Oh, Arc gets picked. There was nothing, and SBB. A lot of people were asking me. People tweeted at me like, "Oh, why in the world did New York not play Pine on Dorado on the last map?" And it's like, if you look back at that match, SBB was on fire. He completely clutched in the Oasis map. He was just on fire. And yes, Pine is, he's the big boss for a reason. He's insanely good, but I know exactly the feeling when, you're a star player like SBB is, and the coach is like, "Hey man, it's your call. Like, do we put like the game plan says put Pine in here, but like it's your team, man. We're giving you the ball if you want it. Do you want it?" And SBB probably goes, "Absolutely. Give me the ball. Like, I want to be in the game at the end of the game." Like Kobe, Kobe is shooting the shot. LeBron is shooting the shot at the end of the game. Like, you don't take out Kobe. You don't take out Kobe Bryant to put in your ace like 17th man who's really good at shooting threes. You don't do that. You give Kobe the ball at the end of the game. And I imagine that's the type of situation for SBB in that last map.
Yeah, and the parallel from recent, I can point to the play where it happened, everything like that. In the Super Bowl, the turning point, the decisive play was the Nick Foles touchdown reception, right? Where he caught the touchdown pass. I guarantee you the game plan under no circumstances said, well, let's let our running back throw the ball to the quarterback and then we'll get free touchdown. Like, that's not how you draw up an offensive playbook. The play's there when you want something. And Nick Foles just literally goes up to the coach and he's just like, "Hey, why don't we run that goofy play?" And the coach looks at him and goes, "All right, you got it. Go do it." And that's it. Like, I mean, that's kind of how you have to play these things. You can overthink yourself. You can outcoach yourself. So, I don't think that's what happened here. I think we've seen them play both Pine and not Pine on the map.
Yeah, they have.
And we've also seen instances where Pine's come in and not been great, and it's hurt them a little bit and hurt their overall performance, if not their map.
For what it's worth, he did really, really good earlier in the day.
Oh my goodness, he was so on fire, it was ridiculous.
He had an insane play.
You
Check out our
don't
top 10 plays
always.
of the week.
But in the last map of the finals, right, when you make swaps like that, it's almost understandable. You have to allow for like that 2 minutes of, well, he's got to get it back. He's got to get back into the swing of things and get it under control. You can't afford 2 minutes.
I'm thinking now. This is going to be an obscure reference and 250 points for anyone who gets this one. But there's a player on the Boston Celtics named Brian Scalabrine, and I bet if you look. Exactly. He was not a starter. He would come in and all he would do, he was this big, lanky, like redheaded guy. All he would do is shoot threes. And I bet if you looked at the stats, like he probably had a better three-point accuracy percentage than Kobe did. But if they were on the same team and you needed 3 points at the end of the game, you're not going to give the ball to Brian Scalabrine. You're going to give the ball to Kobe. So, and I imagine, like, even though it's a little bit different, like Pine is a very good player. He's not the starter. He's not necessarily warm. I don't think Pine even played in the second London game, if I recall correctly. I don't think he came in. So he's not warm. Maybe he wasn't feeling confident. Maybe he gets jitters. I put no blame whatsoever on anyone in New York for not playing Pine in that last map, even if it was part of their game plan to play him. So I'm just putting that to rest. But
the only way I would say it would be their fault is if it was Ilios, because we've like never seen him look bad on Ilios.
Sure.
He's just been the stone cold.
Well, no, we saw
Ilios.
we saw him look the second time he came up, he looked all right on Ilios. He didn't look great. I remember like the week after the big boss. No, it was the second week after like his coming out big boss. Big like the birth of Big Boss Pine happened. Then he like didn't play at all the next week, and everyone was like, "What in the world are they doing?" And then he came back. That was that week where he was like not looking great. That was on Ilios.
Gotcha.
But
well, yeah, but that's the one spot I think he really suits them. Like he should be part of the strategy, because whether it's Ruins and you want the Widow, or whether it's Well and you want the McCree, like he's just got the best. He's the best player for those heroes that you want on that map, in my opinion. But like, even given the moment, all that stuff, like you have to factor that all in. And I don't think there's any chance that New York spends 100% of their time on any map playing with or without Pine. I'll guarantee you they split it.
For sure. It's definitely a game time decision. But that's enough about that, guys. That's stage 1. Yeah, we already went over the standings.
Episode? Super over?
Yeah, we're bordering
2
longest
hours?
episode ever. We're bordering longest episode ever. For a episode that didn't have one of the sections.
No, but as was said in around the payload, context matters. And these matches, I think, warranted the extended conversation. So hopefully you guys liked it. And hopefully we can go a little bit deeper every time we get this stage break where we are allowed to focus on just the recap, or just
where we don't.
Next week's going to be all preview. Spoiler alert. It's preview and signing news is
preview, signing news, and probably what's it called? Community power rankings.
Yeah, we're gonna be trying to put those back together again. So if you're a content creator, by all means, start getting your power rankings together.
Yes.
We will be reaching out to everybody, giving everybody a chance to submit them. Very, very curious to see. This is, considering we have standings that are like kind of almost set in stone. It's going to be really curious to see, because there should be a lot, and it's correct for there to be a lot of moving around here, I think. So
yeah, for this week, my power rankings have at least a few swaps from the standings. It's not just the standings. I will give you
put Houston number 1.
I absolutely did not. But okay, guys, that's gonna be it, because again, we're like bordering on longest episode ever, even though we didn't have all the sections.
Do have a quick iTunes review.
Ooh, we got an iTunes review. Okay, let's get
a 5-star review called The Dudes from E6 Border. Thank you so much for the review. He said they put out a ton of great content based on competitive Overwatch. All their shows are top tier, and they score some of the best guests. Thank you so much, man. Really, really appreciate it. As always, guys, if you want to support the show, head on over to the iTunes page. Leave us that 5-star review. We will read your comment on the air, even if it is not a 5-star. We will still read it, even if it's a little begrudging. Yes. Looking at you, guy that said you'd reevaluate once we fixed our audio problems. It's still a 1-star, bud.
Yeah.
To wheeze. We got you.
Exactly. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, bro. But that is going to be it, guys. Yeah. Remember, you can find everything that we do. All the High Noon production stuff is over at highnoonpodcast.com. Anything else specific, Death, that you want to go over?
No, that's it. Enjoy your week off. Play extra Overwatch because you can. I know that's my plan.
Yeah, same. But yeah, guys, remember, you can check out everything over at highnoonpodcast.com. And if you want to, it is super, super helpful. You can either go to the Twitch channel and you can subscribe to us, because we are Twitch affiliates. You can show your support there, throw some bits, or you can go to Twitch. You can go to patreon.com/highnoonpodcast. We did have a nice little boost of patrons last week, and always looking for more. There is some new features with Patreon too that allow me to do some cool things. So I'm going to try to put a little bit more focus on the Patreon. So if you have been wondering if you want to do that, you can go over to patreon.com/highnoonpodcast and check out all the deets there. But that is going to be it, guys. Again, thanks for listening, all you people who stayed in for the almost 2-hour episode. Thanks for everyone on the live show. Remember, you can check it at twitch.tv/highnoonpodcast. But that is going to be it for Deathblow. I am the Blevins, and remember, guys, it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
LeBron James confirmed by all metrics, no matter what, better than Michael Jordan.